Good morning, everybody. This is Marilyn. Do we have any audio on this? Yes, we do. I take it you typed that in because you can hear me, Chris. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Good morning. This is Marilyn, and it is time for Welcome to My World on the 20th of January. It's about 8:25 in the morning. We're 5 minutes away from a lot of economic news numbers. So if you're in a trade right now, I would put some fairly tight stops on it and pay close attention. And if you're about to take a trade, you might want to give it 5 minutes or a little more and see how this market responds. When I look at everything this morning, I'm saying, I was not able to trade yesterday. So I'm kind of checking everything from yesterday. It looks like there were a great many wonderful trades available. Just sorry I missed a bunch of that. But anyway, the indices all, after having gone down and down and down, are all in a bit of a tight range, and we'll have to see what happens here when this market opens at 9:30, if it gets a boost one way or the other. Gold this morning gold and bonds have been wonderful trades. If you were the early bird crowd or you trade the European markets, my goodness, what a gorgeous trade in gold this morning. And the same with bonds. The DAX, while it's in negative, it's below settlement. I guess that's my point. It's at a -1.5 deviation, and it's been down to it's close to -1 now, so it's between. But my point is, it's below settlement, and it's painting green apexes. So that's a bit of an indication. If the DAX can hold these green apexes and continue to move up, it may take the U.S. markets with it. But I sure am not going to hold my breath until I see exactly what is happening. The dollar has come up a little bit, and it looks like it had a pretty good tumble. But overnight, the euro is down. Yesterday, the VIX closed 26.05. So it's backed off a little bit from that 27 number, but there's not a big difference on the VIX between 26 and 27. It's high. Anyway, our crude oil is going to have inventory report at 10:30 this morning, and sometimes crude oil will not do too much until that inventory report hits. The general assumption is that there is an oversupply in the market, which would cause the price to go down further. That's not necessarily the case, but that's the general idea. I was asked a question earlier this morning by one of our members about what I'm thinking of when I start in the morning, and how I kind of get my head together for what I'm going to do. And I got to thinking about that. That's a very good question, because we all go through different phases in our trading. And especially if you're a beginner, what I'm going to share with you probably is not appropriate for a true beginner, because if you're a beginner, you just need to focus on one market, one chart, and learn that strategy, and just simply get your entries correct. Because if you don't get the entries correct, you will never ever have a trade to manage. You're always going to be a one-man fire department trying to put out a fire because you don't have a good trade in the first place. So focus on the entries first. Once you've got those entries nailed every single time, then ask yourself, how can you do a better job of managing, and what's going to suit your your personal risk tolerance and what makes sense to you. But those entries are the key. I've been trading a little bit longer, and so I kind of have a routine that I go through. I keep all four of the indices in little teeny tiny charts with 30-minute time on them. And I don't necessarily trade those. I never trade those charts. That's ridiculous. But what I'm looking for is a bigger picture. The first thing I want to know is the big picture of what happened overnight that might lead me to think that there's either something very wrong, or what I love to see is everybody playing well together. Because if everybody's playing well together, then you can kind of let go of, good grief, I wonder why this is doing whatever, because it doesn't look right. And I know it sounds like a lot, but your eye and your brain will eventually become accustomed to what these are supposed to look like when they're all doing the right thing. But all four of those, I want to see them all ballpark the same. And for trading, I want to see, I'm going to take the strongest one, the one that's moving, because that's going to be the easiest one to trade. Then I have the same thing that I'm looking at the relative comparison between bonds and the dollar and the euro. The dollar and the euro trade opposite of each other, and bonds typically will trade opposite of the markets. In other words, when the stocks are going up, the bonds are going down. That's not always the case, and not everything is always we're not in a perfect world. But I keep the four of the currencies the same thing. Just I want to see a relative comparison. If you're a currency trader, I suggest you make yourself a little ballpark thing that you can see. When I sit down, I have no idea. I wipe the preconception idea off my brain of what I'm going to trade and what I'm going to do. I have to adjust everything to see first what's going on, and then make sure you know the news. We just had some of this Canadian news hit, and we'll see if looks like the Canadian dollar is at least not offended. Canadian dollar and crude oil tend to trade together. But then it's the time of day, what markets present an opportunity, and then have your little one. Daryl recommends that you go with three: one commodity, one indices, one of them of the indices, and a currency perhaps to learn. And that will give you, if one's not moving, then you have another one you can go to. But this is opportunistic trading. You're looking for an opportunity, and it doesn't matter. The apex indicators will tell you if there's an opportunity, and if you don't see it, don't talk yourself into it. Apex will point the way. Okay? I hope that helps. If it doesn't, just keep asking until you get what you're looking for. And it looks like I'm seeing green apexes on these indices, so perhaps we'll get some recovery from yesterday. But at this point, I think the overall consensus is we're in a bear market, at least for the time being. So I hope this is helpful. If it's not, tell me what you want me to talk about, and if I can, I will. But this has been my view from my world in Apex Land, brought to you by Apex Investing. Thanks.